Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. And today we're going to be talking about something that I was unsure about talking about. I was excited to talk about it when it first came out, then I decided I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until this is all done and in the can and whether or not they were going to get a second season. And that's Star Wars is The Bad Batch on Disney Plus, the latest installment from Dave Filoni and crew, who have done an increasingly better job as the years went on Clone Wars. A fantastic job on The Mandalorian. And we're back with The Bad Batch. Some characters that were created out of the Clone Wars that were clone characters, different from the others that were genetically made to have specific kind of roles. Look, this video is just my opinion. Okay? And to preface that, okay? One of my earliest memories is of sitting in the theater as a young kid seeing Empire Strikes Back. I fucking love Star Wars. All right? Or at least I want to love Star Wars more than... I want to love Star Wars like I did. I watched the hell out of those movies. I remember, like the anticipation of waiting for a new Star Wars movie. The anticipation that we had after Jedi came out. And the drought, the long, dragged out drought that we had to get to The Phantom Menace. And finding the books along the way and occasionally a game. And then the prequels came out. And while there are bits and pieces in there of good Star Wars, it started to make me feel like, oh boy, maybe this should have just dwindled away, maybe, my nostalgia for it, but the thing was, is I kept fighting that feeling. I wanted Star Wars to come back to the way I remember it. And, I just think that you just can't go home again sometimes, you just can't. And things either evolve and you can accept it, or just hope that sometimes you find a nugget that's good that you can like about the universe of Star Wars. Like I really like Rogue One. But then the new movies came out. Like I said, Rogue One stands out to me as different because it's trying to be a part of the original. Like it's actually the first movie. You could look at it like that in a way. It feels more like one of the older movies, even if it's got more modern look to it and everything. And some people hate it. I happen to actually really like despite the characters, like all the things that people talk about. There, some of them have points, some of them I would argue against. But the new movies, and I still haven't seen Return. What is it? Rise of the Skywalker or whatever the fuck. I won't see that movie. But I've kind of like, Star Wars has just been, letting me down. Me personally. I want to like it more and I just don't. But we get to, like I said, the Clone Wars was pretty good. It kept getting better. I really like it. Mandalorian. That feels like classic Star Wars we're telling again. And The Bad Batch. Here we get to this. And I was... To be honest with you, I was kind of like, do I care? Do I care or not? I started watching it, and I had the same feelings I did with watching early Clone Wars, where I was like, some of this is really good, and some of this I really can't stand. And that's pretty much how I feel about the first season, is what works really works, and what doesn't really doesn't. And I'm trying to figure out where to go about this, but we'll talk about the series. Keep wanting to say series, season finale as well. So look, what I like about this story is these guys that were introduced near the end of the Clone Wars series they were all these unique individuals who had different kind of powers or abilities, I should say. Soldier abilities, the tech, the stealth guy, the brute, the sharpshooter. And I thought when I really thought about it, I was like, these guys, they have a reputation. They get shit done. they kill a lot of people. Let's not permit to find a point on it. These guys are hardcore, go in and wipe people out squad of guys. And they're very capable. That they're very successful, and there's only like 5 of them. Right? So let's not mince words. These guys are highly trained killers. You can call them soldiers if you want, but they're the guys that you send in to take care of shit. So that idea I liked. It's like, let's follow these guys around. And it's the end of the Clone Wars, and we have the next step before you get, as they start phasing out clones and start putting in stormtroopers, and what happens to the clones and the identities of all the clones, and what do the clones do that, aren't part of the Bad Batch. There's a lot of really interesting ideas and things that we didn't ever see in between, the end of Revenge of the Sith and now. Rebels is, but just kind of jumped into the middle of the story, where we start seeing like some like flashes and hear stories about stuff that happened at the end of the Republic. But this is like right at the beginning of the end of the, like right after Order 66 and everything else. And so all of those aspects of this show are really, really cool. Watching the clones be confused about their own future. And by the clones, I don't just mean the Bad Batch. And you get to see the Empire's way of looking at things. And it answers like the questions about Kamino. Like whatever happened with Kamino. Like if the clones are getting phased out, what would the Empire do? And we get those answers. And it's as dark as you would expect it to be. And all that stuff is really, really, really cool. The overall Empire taking over the galaxy part of this show is really cool and fills in so many interesting gaps. The problem that I have with this show, off and on, is what they're doing with the main characters. Where you have these guys that are very capable. Very, very, very competent and capable guys. And, what they do with the Order 66 stuff, of how they get their own chips out. The risk that they take in that. And the betrayal of Crosshair, was all really well done. I really was enjoying what was going on early. But then we got to talk about the thing that holds this show back. But in doing that, I also have to acknowledge, and I understand, that this is not made specifically for adults and people who've been watching Star Wars and been involved in Star Wars since 1970s. We've had the benefit of growing up with all of this. Some people not even growing up, Some people were 40 and 50, 60, 70 when Star Wars came out, and they might not even have got, they probably didn't even get to the Clone Wars before they passed a lot of these Star Wars fans. But people like me I was right at that sweet spot almost perfect sweet spot where I was like 5 or 6 when Empire came out. So I've grown up with this, spent my whole life watching this. And so I have these things built inside of me of, what Star Wars to me should be like. And reading tons of the books and everything else and not feeling like it's just for kids. As much as they try to work that in to get in new audiences, people weren't reading books. People still don't read a lot of books, in my opinion. And so when we were reading all the books, I felt like I was getting more adult content. Those books were written for adults. A kid could enjoy them. A teenager could enjoy them. But they were more adult. There wasn't a bunch of childish shit going on. And then the prequels come out. And there's a lot of kiddie stuff in there, but there's also serious undertones. This is the fall of the Republic. Darth Vader's creation. Really dark subject matter. And that's one of the problems I've found with Star Wars, is not that it's, in the end, trying to be made for a younger generation. It's that the way that they talk to the younger generation in a way, and how it talks down. I feel like it talks down in a way to the audience. It's insulting to a lot of the adults that are like, duh, we know all this. Because it's, they're trying to throw in lessons for kids. And that's all well and good. But it's a lot of times it just feels really heavy handed. And like really like holding your hand like to lead you down the where they're trying to take you lesson wise. Like how to be as a person. So we get to Omega, the character of Omega, who I really like the voice actor a lot. She does a really good job. I like that they also gave her the accent, the Australian, New Zealand, whatever, down under, the accent to match the male, her brothers. But this character is the way that she interacts with the group and how the group of the Bad Batch is written in connection with her, to me turns them into a bunch of incompetent idiots. Where it's almost laughable at times. Where these guys that should know absolutely what to do suddenly feel like the fucking Three Stooges sometimes. It just gets ridiculous. So tonally, getting back to that, it's like sometimes this show is like right on fire, and then it switches tones to this very kiddish tone where it's just like, oop, here comes the kids in the scene, so everything gets dumbed down. And I get that she wants she's like the Jiminy Cricket. She's there to try to show these guys that they can, not only are they different from the other clones and they can evolve and be, better people and choose to, help instead of just, running off on their own and being mercenaries. Even though honestly that's what they would probably do in reality, is just be a bunch of guys looking out for themselves. But for the sake of the kids, let's put them on a path that's more kind to people who need help. And the lesson in there is great. I just don't buy it. But it's for the children. So, again, I always have to remind myself, this is for kids. This is on Disney Plus. This isn't on Hulu, where if this was on Hulu, they'd probably be able to do a lot more. But they, got to put this on the flagship app. So you got to make it more directed towards kids. And so every time she's on screen, for a large part of it, I'm just checked out because I just feel like it makes these characters completely stupid as hell. All these situations that they would have had no problem in, they've dumbed it down to fit the situation so that Omega can teach them lessons on how to be better people. Now, that being said, I do still like Omega at times. I really, really do. Sometimes it's the way she is very important. Sometimes the lessons that they have, sometimes the things that she has to say, the things that we find out about her actually, how she's really older than them. Their process is sped up. She's growing up like Boba Fett. She's been around, and she's also been around scientists. And she's learned all this stuff. So she's not a typical little kid. She's, not just a clone and a genetically enhanced clone and to know more, but like she's got a level head, and it explains why she talks and thinks like she does. But also in some ways of the world, she's just naive because she's only been on Camino. So I get all that. And it really gets better, especially in the 2-part finale. So let's talk about that. So the finale, we find the destruction of Camino. All the Caminoans who didn't want to work with the Empire or the Empire had no interest in are fucking dead. We don't see any of it. We just know it happened. It's like when Anakin walks in on the younglings and he turns on the lightsaber and that one kid goes, like jerks. We know what's about to happen. They're all going to die. We don't need to see it. Well, we don't. We don't need to see it. Just messing around. There's a little gag. Sorry. Did not see. So, and the Empire is blasting the hell out of the city, and our clones are trying to get out. Our Bad Batch is trying to get out, and they've confronted Crosshair. We find out that he took his chip out a long time ago, and that everything he's been doing is of his own volition, and that he just believes in the Empire. And it's in this where Omega, saves Crosshair, tries to save was it AXI, the robot, and just talking to Crosshair about, like, I understand, like, not talking down to him. There was no talking down in this episode. This two-part episode. It was just them trying to get out. And while I do find it convenient that the Empire just missed where they parked their ship, it's fine. It's right there. It's not that far. Hey, what's that? Oh, nothing. Just leave it. It's not on our, so it's not, since the ship's not on, I guess it's not registering on any scanners, but there's a lot of windows. Somebody go, hey, maybe there's, but again, it's fine. Our characters have to get off the planet somehow. But in this finale, and it's way more action-packed than the second part, I really enjoyed watching these characters struggle and come together and see this important missing part of the Star Wars universe, of what happened to Kamino. It's pretty straightforward and simple, but none of it's talking down to me or the audience or anything. Like, the things that I usually don't like aren't here. And even the decision by, the struggle of Crosshair, which, depending on how you feel about him, whether you want him ever to be redeemed or not, like, it doesn't matter, because we really don't get a redemption here. We don't get an easy answer, and I kind of applaud the show for doing that, to not going down the easy route. That he's not just going to suddenly go, oh, all right, even though he's seen what's possible, he's been saved by them, and he still decides to stay, even though they tell him you're just a number. You're going to always just be nothing to them. They left you here to die. Now, that's the one part that did bother me, is that since they did try to kill him, I feel like Crosshair is in that position of that a lot of people get into. Like, I myself can relate down a certain path, and you want to be stubborn, and you don't want to give in. You don't want to admit that you were wrong, and you just kind of keep going, and you let things play out as they will, and it usually means it's not going to play out great, and you're just going to have to learn your lessons the hard way. I get that. And I understand that. So it kind of tracks for me that he's going to stay, and he's got to learn some more lessons about what the Empire is going to really do. And I feel like it's pretty obvious that he'll wise up in some way in the next season. But I really liked how we ended things. And knowing that they've got plans for Nala Se, the last Kaminoan. She's going to be like the face of the Kaminoans. I know there's more out there that they've taken, but she's going to be like the face of the Kaminoans. The only other thing I have to say about this series is the inconsistency in animation at times. Is that the backgrounds and the ships are all really, really, really great. Seriously, all the stuff that they do in the background is fantastic looking. The way that everything is designed around our characters is really, really good. But Clone Wars has been, as far as characters and character models, has been very, very spotty at best. It's 2021, and it still looks kind of stiff and wooden in our characters a lot of times, and sometimes just really unimaginative and bland for such a wonderful world that they live in. But that's a small gripe, because, again, for me, it's all about character and story mostly, and all the rest of it. It's like reading a comic book that doesn't have the best art. If the story's good enough and you can get me hooked that way, unless the art is really, really, really distracting and pulls away from a good story. Whoa. There's a fly in the room. Otherwise, it's fine. So that's my thoughts on, I can't believe I talked about this for 20 minutes, but that's my thoughts on the Bad Batch Season 1. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. Otherwise, we'll be back with more content later. Have a good one. Bye.